So we give praise, esteem, and honor to the Most High YAHUAH Elohim, Bah Hashem Yahushua this day. John chapter 5 and about verse 39. Yeah, buddy. You can get your fingers on 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and 1 Chronicles chapter 16 and Ezekiel chapter 40. In that order. 2 Chronicles chapter 2, 1 Chronicles chapter 16, and Ezekiel chapter 40. We will move around Ezekiel chapter 40 with a little stealth. So that means we'll be touching a few things. My desire is to be able to touch one matter out of all 8 chapters, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. Because this is a labor-intensive matter, and we will take our time with that matter. Yes, I know it. John 5:39. It's all right, little one. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. So that means we got to search him because it's testifying to him. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ezekiel is in the scriptures, which means whatever's in Ezekiel is talking about the Son. I'm going to tell y'all this here, right? I seen a nigga who reposted something, a memory that he shared from a year ago. Look at Hosea 12 and 10, because we used to start with Hosea 12 and 10, alternating with John 5:39, and we ain't did that in a while. And I'm going to go ahead and look at it because I'm thinking about the memory that this dude showed, because he was shooting at somebody else, but he was shooting at me because the dude who he was shooting at got what he was talking about from me. From talking to me, I should say. You know what I'm saying? Because we showed this and expounded this to him. And he went about on his own to expound it on his own, not really having a full control of the subject matter, so to speak. But they began to ridicule and mock him about it. But then none of them come to me with it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't like that type of stuff. Because if you know that he got that information from somebody else and you're ridiculing him about, oh, it's not right, it's not this, it's not that, then why don't you have the heart to come to the person that he got it from when you know who the person is that he got it from, and that you can get in contact with the person that he got it from. It's a real coward move, in my opinion. Because it really, I say that because you feel like you want to jump on or beat up on somebody who you feel like is an easy win, versus somebody that could be your intellectual and spiritual equal, so to speak. So you don't want to do that. You know, bullying somebody, picking on somebody, that's not cool. That's a better way to put it. 12 and 10 in the book of Hosea. I have also spoken by the prophets, and I have multiplied visions and used similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. Now, before we go forward, this man say he has spoken by the prophets. Now, there's something ringing in my mind, and I'm going down and swing around there to it. I'm just setting the stage for what we're looking at. Not trying to go too deep, but just setting the stage. You know what I'm saying? And when we set this stage, what we see here, if the phone will cooperate. Now, when this man say he spoke by his prophets, that's the bar. He spoke his word. Now, we got Nabi for his prophets, right? And that's a spokesman, a speaker, a prophet. So this is a spokesman. Now, we're going to look at multiplied. And that's Rabbah. He say, I've multiplied. That means to be or become great, or become many, or become much, or become numerous. To multiply and to increase. Which we already know that, but there's a reason why I'm taking this track. And then we have visions. And that is Kazan, and that is an oracle, or divine communication. So now we're going to look at that word similitude, because that's what the man was focusing on. And the Hebrew word for similitude is damah. And it means to be like or resemble. To liken or compare. Now just let that in your mind. And then we're going to look at ministry as well while we're looking at this. And it's yod. And it's the strength or power, or it's the hand. A sign or a monument or time or repetition, stays or support. So we're looking at the yod, or the character for the right hand. So this is what we get out of this. So when we look at, he's spoken by the prophet, he's multiplied visions, and used similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. That means he used something like or comparable by the right hand of the prophets. That's what he did. He did this by his spokesman. Let's look at something in 1 Peter chapter 1 and about verse 10. Because dudes want to sit back and say, oh, that's a false teaching, the similitudes. And it's something that's coming in my mind in Hebrew chapter 10, about verse 1, and we'll look at that too. And then we'll swing to 2 Chronicles chapter 2. That means whatever we're looking at by the ministry of the prophets or by the right hand of the prophets. Because he said, to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed, who have believed our report. So that means this ministry, that's why you turn around and you see Revelation 19 and 10 said this testimony of Yahushua is the Ruach of prophecy. So that means that ministry of that right hand of his spokesman were always multiplying a vision of this individual, and all these things were like him. It was always about him. We had to set it like that because there's some people not going to like what we're looking at if they see it. And I truthfully don't really give two Londons. Let's look at verse 8 though. In 1 Peter chapter 1. Whom having not seen ye love, and whom though now ye see him not, yet believing you rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of esteem. Reserving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls, of which salvation the prophets have inquired and searched diligently, who prophesied of the favor that should come unto you. Searching what or what manner of time the Ruach of Mashiach, which was in them, did signify when it testified beforehand the sufferings of Mashiach and the esteem that should follow. So now it's telling you that it was Mashiach, or the right, that's why he say he multiplied visions by the ministry of the prophets, or the yard of the right hand of the prophets, because that is who was in them doing the ministry. How do we know that? Because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim, and everything that was made was not made without the Word. So when we read in Genesis 1 and 2 that the Ruach of Elohim moved upon the face of the earth, then we see that this is Mashiach. So when we see the Ruach falling on these men, we're seeing the Son of Elohim falling on these men. That he was dwelling in them, or in them at that time before he manifested himself, because he had to be able to be in them to testify of himself. Now we look at John chapter 15 real fast. I know I mentioned something in Hebrew 10. I'm going to get to it in a second. Look at this John chapter 15. 15 and 26. 15 and 26. Say, you okay? You okay? John 15 and 26. This will make this statement that he's about to make so much more stronger, and why you see why he say he multiplied these visions by the right hand of the prophets. See, they love to play the game. Yasharal ain't sitting at the right hand of the prophet. He certainly wasn't talking about King David. He never called King David his right hand. He never called him that. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, even the Ruach of truth, which proceed from the Father, he shall testify of me. He will speak of the Son. The Ruach HaKodesh will bear witness of the Son. That is what it will do. It will manifest him unto you. He said in 1 John he tell you, if you got to witness a man, that's good. But if you got to witness Elohim, that's greater. Let's look at this Hebrew 10 and 1. When we come to 2 Chronicles chapter 2, see what we do from now. Hebrew 10 and 1. For the Torah, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. Now we're not even dealing with the second half of it. It's just saying that the Torah was a shadow of things to come. So that takes us back to Galatians, where he tell you the Torah is your schoolmaster to bring you to Mashiach. So all these things are just a similitude or a dark saying. That's what a shadow is darkness, right? So let's look at Proverbs 1:1 real fast. I had to do this for a smarter out because I know the nigga reshared it, and I know when he reshared it what he was trying to do. Because the individual who he's shooting at, he first sunk that to, is a little shaky in the word now. He ain't that tight with it. He ain't that strong with it. See, I don't like when niggas throw rocks high in their hand. I don't really be on. I ain't on that. You know what I'm saying? That's not what's happening, man. You know, we were talking about this last night. I don't know who heard it. I know I was telling Tamal this here. I know D and Will heard it. But you can't, you just don't wake up one day and just become a real dude overnight. You either are or you aren't. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And when niggas be throwing rock high in their hand, that's not what, real people don't do that. That's not what's happening. You know what I'm saying? If you felt like us saying that the testifying of the similitudes, that all these things are similarities to what Mashiach will fulfill later were false, and you could have brought that to us and we could have had a discussion about it. You know what I'm saying? Instead of sneak dissing. That's not cool. Proverbs 1:1. Make sure that's what I want. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Yasharal, to know wisdom and instruction, and to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. A man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. To understand a proverb and the interpretation thereof, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. It means it's a shadow. It's not easily recognizable. The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So in order for you to understand a proverb and the interpretation and the words of the wise, you would need to hear. That's why the master said here, one of the first things he told you in Deuteronomy chapter 6, what he told you, hear, O Yasharal. You hear the master say, you know, hear what the Ruach saith unto the houses. He that have an ear, let him hear. Because that's in the Torah. He told you to hear. He said he will increase learning. I mean, you're going to do what the man told you to do. You're going to seek ye out the book of Yahuwah and read. All this what you read in Proverbs is book for it. Then this man say, a man of understanding will attain to wise counsels. It means you're going to attain to wise people that can give you the directive course of action in the way that you ought to go. Which we know that from Ephesians 4:14. He gave some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors, some teachers for the edifying of the body, for the work of the ministry, till you come into the fullness of Mashiach. This is how you'll be able to understand a dark saying, because other than that, you're not going to be able to understand a dark saying. It's going to remain a shadow, and you're going to continually walk in darkness, and he that walk in darkness know not where he goeth, and when he stumble, he will fall into a pit, and that pit will burn with fire and brimstone, and the worm dies not. 2 Chronicles chapter 2. Second Chronicles chapter 2. We will look at verse 1. And get you 1 Chronicles chapter 16 and verse 1. Listen to what he says. Solomon determined to build a house for the name of Yahuwah, and a house for his kingdom. Solomon told out 70,000 men to bear burdens, 80,000 to hew in the mountain, and 3,600 to oversee them. And Solomon sent to Huram the king of Tyre, saying, as thou did deal with David my father, and did send him cedars to build him a house to dwell therein, even so deal with me. Behold, I build a house to the name of Yahuwah my Elohim, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for continual shewbread, and for the burnt offerings, morning and evening, on the Shabbats, on the new moons, on the solemn feast of Yahuwah. This is an ordinance forever to Yasharal. And the house which I build is great, for great is our Elohim above all gods. But who is able to build him a house, seeing that Shamahim and Shamahim of Shamahims cannot contain him? Who am I then, that I should build him a house, only to burn sacrifice before him? Now we need to look at all of these statements. He said he was determined to build a house. I want you to hold this here before we even look at 1 Chronicles 16, because we're going to have to wait on it. I want you to go look at Zechariah chapter 6 and about verse 12. He said he is determined to build him a house. After you look at Zechariah 6 and 12, I want you to get Matthew 16 and 16. And behind Matthew 16 and 16, get you Hebrew chapter 3 and verse 1. So that will be Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 12. Hebrews 16, Matthew 16 and 16. Matthew 16 and 16. And Hebrew chapter 3 verse 1. Zechariah 6 and 12. Make it 11. Make it 9. And the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, take of them of the captivity, even Heldai, of Tobiah, and Yediah, which are come from Babylon. And came thou the same day, and go into the house of Josiah of Zephaniah. Then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them upon the head of Yahushua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. It's another reason why you see the master in Revelation 14 and 14 coming in that cloud with a crown on his head. And speak unto him, saying, thus speaketh Yahuwah of hosts. Behold, the man whose name is the branch. He shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuwah. Even he shall build the temple of Yahuwah. And he shall bear the esteem, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne. And the counsel of Shalom shall be between them both. So he said he will come up out of his place to build this house. Matthew 16 and 16. We got to look and see what place he got to come up out of to build it. He said he going to build the house. Yahushua going to build the house. It be tripping me out when I be seeing these dudes talking about, well, if Yahushua is Jesus and he's the son of God, show me his name in the scriptures. When we show you the man's name, you don't want to believe it because you just think his name Yahushua. This man got many names. Clown. 16 and 16. Make it 13 though. Hello. Hello. Yes, sir. When Yahshua came, you say when Yahushua came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say that thou art Yachanan the Immerser, some Elijah, others Yirmiyahu, or one of the prophets. He saith unto him, but whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Mashiach, the Son of the living Elohim. Yahushua answered and said unto him, Baruch art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Abba which is in Shamayim. And I say also unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my house, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of Shamayim, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on the Erat shall be bound in Shamayim, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on the Erat shall be loosed in Shamayim. Then he charged his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Yahushua the Mashiach. And from that time forth began Yahushua to show unto his disciples how he must go unto Yerushalyim and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and raised again the third day. Before we look at this Hebrew 3 and 1, come over here to Daniel chapter 9. Now we see where he's going to raise up out of his place to build this house. He's got to raise up out of the grave to do it. Well, let's swing over here to Daniel 9 real fast. And I think I want about verse 24. Matter of fact, don't even worry about verse Daniel chapter 9. Go to Amos chapter 9. That's a little bit tighter. Amos chapter 9 is a little bit tighter. See, now when a lot of gentlemen look at this, they look at it a little differently. They might say you trying to stretch it, and you know, who knows, man, but I don't cook coke no more, so we ain't talking about stretching no coke. You don't go in there and tell my homeboy, man, put this in 1,000, man, and stretch this 14. Put this 28 in 2,000 and stretch that for me. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no need to stretch it. When you're trying to stretch it, you're trying to make something that fits into something that don't fit. Well, we know Mashiach fit into everything. Ain't no need for us to do that. 9 and 11. Oh, children of Yasharal, Amos 9 and 11. And that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen. David's house never failed. We talk about David specifically. It never failed. And close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins. And I will build it as in the days of old. Well, let's look at what this Hebrew word is for raise up ruins real fast. Because we know we got smart guys all over the world. You know, God pretty intelligent, you know. I sat back and heard something very disturbing today. While I'm sitting there thinking about smart guys. It's got something to do with what we talking about. But then it don't. But what it is just disrespect. But let me pull this up. When we look at that, we got quam, right? It's to raise up, to arise, or to become powerful, to come on the scene, or to stand. But not only that, but to be valid, and to be proven, and to be fulfilled. To confirm, to ratify, establish. And I say well, that word quam means to ratify or to establish. Basically to bring about. Not just, you know, how we just say rise, no quam yasharala, you know, you do say quam yasharala and all that there. No. Just doesn't mean just that. But hold on. Now we got ruins and ain't nothing for that. Not nothing of significance. So when we sit back and we look at, it means to establish or ratify. I will raise up the ruins as in the days of old. I will ratify it. I will establish it as what it was in the beginning. That's what he's telling us. So then we need to look at something with that. Before we even get to Hebrews 3 and 1, we need to look at John chapter 2 and about verse 14. And then we need to look at Hebrews chapter 9 and about verse 14. So say we just take our time with this one here. And that means we're going to hit a lot of precepts like we have in times past, like we used to do. And touch 40, 50, 60. That's what we're going to do this evening. Do you know what I'm saying? So, I ain't going to move that fast. We can take our time, you know what I'm saying? This ain't no light matter what we looking at. Got to establish it, if you understand what I'm saying. John chapter 2, verse 14. But what I heard a gentleman tell a man was this. He said, man, I bet that you would put your mouth on my dog's penis for subscribers on your YouTube page. Now, he told this man this because he had no respect for him whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? And obviously so. You know what I'm saying? But it's a mention this in the same way this lady disrespected me and said all type of stuff about me the other night. You know what I'm saying? Now, hold on. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hey, Sean. It's Tony.
Hey, Brother Tony.
Sorry, man. I've called your number instead of the conference.
I mean, I can merge in the call. It don't make no difference.
What's that, this number?
All right. Hey, that's Brother Tony there, everybody. That's Brother Tony on the phone. That's Brother Tony. John 2 and 17, actually. John 2 and 17. 2 and 17. I'm going to tell you something, man. You know, people can be real disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? And dealing with what we're dealing with, it's going to be a lot of real disrespectful. I know I'm not going to be able to hit every avenue with the house. Most high willing, I just carry it over tomorrow because I do want to hit the things with the offering and sacrifices in Ezekiel chapter 40. And I know that I'm going to have to give that the proper care that it deserves. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in 2 Chronicles chapter 2 because of that. But I'm going to spend some time in it. And then whatever I didn't hit in 2 Chronicles 2 and 1 Chronicles 16, Yahuwah willing, you'll just touch it on the morrow. 2 and 17 of Yachanan of John. And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of thine house have eaten me up. Then answered the Yahudim and said unto him, what sign show thou unto us, seeing that thou do these things? Yahushua answered and said unto them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Yahudim, 40 and 6 years was this temple in building, wilt thou rear it up in 3 days. But he spake of the temple of his body. When therefore he was risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this unto them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Yahushua had said. Hello? So, Hebrews chapter 9, about verse 14. So when we look at the ruins, that means to establish or ratify. Well, what has to occur for something to be established or to be ratified? Something has to die. So when he's telling you this, he's telling us that what? I'm going to ratify my covenant as in the days of old. He said I got to rebuild it like in the days of old. All you got to go back and look at in John 17 when the master said, Father, give me the esteem that I had with you before the world was. It is amazing to me how many people that they claim to believe in Mashiach do not believe that he was manifested in Shamahim before he was manifested on their arrest. I don't understand how they don't see that. But a lot of them do not. But it is what it is. Hebrews 9 and 14. And that's making me think about something. And I'm going to show y'all this here. Praise Yahuwah how I work this in. Because it's been in my mind for about 3 days. 9 and 14. You get a little something extra. After this Hebrews 9 and 14, go to Colossians 1 and 15. And I'm going to see who can catch this and put this connection together. That's in my brain right now. If you can, you can. Praise Yahuwah. If you can't, praise Yahuwah. It's not a big deal. Some of you probably know it, but you ain't going to realize you know it till you hear it. How much more shall the blood of Mashiach, who through the eternal Ruach offered himself without spot to Elohim, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim? And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, that they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of a necessity be death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all, while the testator lives. Whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood, for when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the Torah, he took the blood of calves and of goats, and with water and scarlet wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying, This is the blood of the testament which Elohim have enjoined unto you. But hold on, because it's going to tie to what we're going to look in Ezekiel. So I guess we ought to read it. Moreover, he sprinkled with blood both the tabernacle and all the vessels of the ministry. Just for your memory's sake, we done went over this before. You know that was manifested when the master plastered around the cup and said, This is the blood of the new covenant which is shed for many for the remission of sins. And he passed it around to the apostles, sprinkling the blood upon the vessels of the ministry, knowing that word. Well, I won't be able to say that in this instance because it might not translate from Greek to Hebrew, that it would be the yard, like what we read in Hosea 12. So let me not say that. But we know when we read ministry in Hosea chapter 12, we looked at the yard or the right hand. You know what I'm saying? Of the prophets. The right hand is what moves the people along. This is who directs us. This is who moves us. He guides us with his hand skillfully. Skillfully. Cunningly. This is what the Yahuwah does by way of our master, Yahushua. This is what he did for us. That's why he said, I multiplied visions by the ministry of the prophets or by the right hand of the prophets. Because Yahushua is the one who directed the prophets, as we read in 1 Peter. And almost all things are by the Torah purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. Listen to the next thing he said. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of the things in Shamahim should be purified with these, but the things of Shamahim themselves with better sacrifices than these. So the reason why we say it's necessary that the pattern of the things on high be purified with these. So that means the things that go on in the Arats are in the pattern of the things that are on high. Now just keep that in mind when we swing back to Ezekiel. Because do we really think they're slaughtering bulls and goats in Shamahim? This is what these dudes be missing. Do we really think that Yahuwah is offering bulls and goats in Shamahim? Are there lambs being slaughtered? Are they offering turtle doves? If people would sit back and actually think and actually examine the scriptures and not look at it through the eyes of a carnal man, but of a spiritual being as we're supposed to, then we wouldn't actually think that with New Yerushalyim being the actual literal things in Shamahim, that the things in actual earthly Jerusalem was a pattern of, then we would sit back and know that this is not occurring. That we would not be sacrificing animals in the kingdom. So this is going to be a major, major point when we come back, because we're going to look at some of those things that Solomon said about sacrifices. And then we're going to go straight to Ezekiel. Because we're looking at the master's death as forth as raising up his ruins, looking at raising up being calm. That means we're looking at he is establishing or ratifying. So when he rose this man from the dead, he established and ratified the new covenant. He established and ratified that I will remember your sins no more, and I will write my laws in your heart and in your inward parts. I shall be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. So what we got to look at, you got to understand that what we're looking at is just not, oh, he's the house. What you're looking at is this, the mercy and plan of salvation of Elohim through Yahushua HaMashiach, that you might be redeemed back unto him. That you would no longer have the mind of a mortal man, but that you would have a mind of an eternal being, and that you would be quickened to life everlasting, and to dwell with him continually, and to move as such. Colossians 1:15. So go ahead and grab that water, man, for it free. No, neither one of us will be having an adult beverage. Colossians 1:15. I thought I had that in this book. I do not. But I got another one. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, y'all. Colossians 1:15. We'll make it 12, though. Giving thanks unto the Father, which hath made us meet to be partakers of inheritance of the Kadeshim in light, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son, whom we have the redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins, who is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created that are in Shamahim and that are in the Arats, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the house, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that all things he might have the preeminence. Hello? What's going on, Lisa? So, I want to ask y'all a question. In the Torah, who can we see that we can say is the firstborn from the dead? He said he's the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he might have preeminence. That's not who I'm looking for, but you wouldn't be wrong. Yes, that is. Joseph is who we're looking for. Let's go over here and let's look at that in Genesis chapter 40. Adam is not wrong. That's just not who I'm looking for in this situation. Let's look at Genesis chapter 40. 40 and 12. Because that is absolutely correct. Adam, being a lifeless soul, when he breathed into it, breathed that ruach in him, and he made him a living nephash, Adam literally became the firstborn from the dead, and he had dominion and rule over everything, and he had preeminence all in all, just like the son did. The reason why we're looking at Joseph is we're looking at the things that Joseph received after the fact. And especially for one particular thing that we're going to look at in Genesis 41, going along with the yard of the prophets, that he multiplied visions by the ministry or the yard of the prophets, to whom is the yard of Yahuwah revealed, who have believed that report. Faith come by hearing, and hearing come by the word of Elohim. He that believe on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. You know what I'm saying? So this is what we're looking at. Make it 9. The chief butler told his dream to YAHUAH, and he said to him in my dream, behold, a vine was before me. Now remember, we also tie this in to Zechariah chapter 6 verse 12. That he said he'll be a king and priest on his throne, and he will grow up out of his place and build the house. Well, when we turn around and look at it, Pharaoh actually gave Joseph, the priest's daughter, to wife. You know what I'm saying? And for all intents and purposes in Pharaoh's kingdom, Joseph was considered to be a priest. And because what we read in Ezekiel 41, and when he sits back and he sits up at the right hand of Pharaoh, and you're going to see him growing up out of his place. And you're going to see him doing the same thing that was prophesied of Yahushua, son of Jehozadak, to do. Because from this process, when YAHUAH has actually come up out of this grave, so to speak, out of this prison, you see him to begin to build his house, which is with Ephraim and with Manasseh, and then the rest of the sons of Yaakov coming into that place, and then the house of Yasharal beginning to be built. But it was built when one man, when he rose up out of his place, being the firstborn from the dead. And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And if Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And YAHUAH said unto him, this is the interpretation of it, the 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head and restore thee unto thy place. Thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, and the former after the former manner when thou was his butler. The same way he said he will build up his ruins as in the days of old, when he repairs the breaches of the house of David, or the tabernacle of David. Same way the master said, you tear this temple down, I'll rear it up again in 3 days. Now this is the thing that Joseph is interpreting the dream to the butler. But also remembering that we're dealing with that this is him preaching to the spirits in prison. For all intents and purposes, when this man goes into this prison, he was dead. Because, you know, the saying in the streets is when you're in jail, you know what I'm saying? Out of sight, out of mind. You know, when you get locked up, it's like you dead. You know what I'm saying? And this is the same instance what we're seeing. We see him in prison and we see him dead. Now, when we come back and overlook at Genesis 41, you know, the chief butler remembers him. And he makes mention to Pharaoh to go get him. Now, of course, we know no one needed to make mention to Abba Yahuwah to go get the son. But he remembered him to have mercy, and he rose him up out of that place. So then we see him. The reason why we look at him as being first begotten of the dead, because he was the firstborn son of Rachel. That's why we're looking at this here. When we look at all the sons of Jacob, Rachel was the wife that he loved. Joseph was the son that he loved above all his children. He loved him more than all his children. And his brothers envied him for that. The same way you look at the scribes and Pharisees, they envied Yahushua because he was the son who his father loved. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Joseph was the beloved son of Jacob. He's Rachel's firstborn son. So this is why we look at him as being the first begotten from the dead. He's the firstborn to rise. We see that again in the 37th chapter of the same book of Genesis, when they dropped him in the pit, and when they came into the pit where there was no water, and they returned and he was gone. He was the first begotten of the dead. Didn't fall on Reuben. Fell on Joseph, who named me Elohim has taken away my reproach. Sitting back looking at what we read in Hebrew chapter 9, we see again the qualm in that Amos chapter 9, or the ratifying or the establishing, the new covenant being established. Genesis 41 and about 37. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such as one as this, a man who of the Ruach of Elohim is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Elohim has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house. And according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Mizraim. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck, and made him to ride in a second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all Mizraim. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his head or foot in all the land of Mizraim. So he's got the preeminence all in all. Everything is through him. And who gave him this power but Pharaoh? And we know that in Egyptian folklore, Pharaoh was as Elohim. So Elohim gave the man who was to take away the reproach of man all this authority and power, making him the head of the body, the head of the house, just like what we read in Colossians. All because he had to be the first begotten of the dead. He come up out of prison or come up out of the grave and receive these things. And one of the things that we'll look at in Ezekiel 46 and about verse 16 is that those who come up out of the grave with Mashiach, who have been buried with him in likeness in his immersion, you will take on these same things. Now let's look at Hebrews 3. Somebody breathe hard. Hebrews 3 and 1. Then we'll go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 2. Wherefore, Kadesh brethren, partakers of the calling of Shamahim, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Yahushua HaMashiach, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. For this man was counted worthy of more esteem than Moses, insomuch as he who hath builded the house have more honor than the house. For every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is Elohim. See, remember now it says Solomon, or the king of Shalom, purposed within himself to build Elohim a house. This was his purpose, to build Elohim a house. To build Elohim a house. Let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 2. Let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 2. So when we look at it, it says right here in verse 1 that Solomon determined to build the house for the name of Yahuwah. Yahushua was determined to build a house for the name of Yahuwah.
Stop running.
Matthew 16 and John chapter 2 have established that for us. And a house for his kingdom. So he wanted to have a place for his kingdom. He wanted to have a place for his kingdom to dwell. You know, the book tells that the kingdom of Elohim is not in meat and drink, but in power and in demonstration of the Ruach. So he wants a people of a righteous nature, a spiritual people to serve a spiritual being, because Elohim is a Ruach. And those that worship him must worship him in Ruach and truth. This is why he is determined to build him a house and a kingdom. We look at another thing that Solomon said that he wanted to do. He said that you send him cedars to build him a house to dwell therein. Like to David, he said, even send to me. He said, I want to build a house to Yahuwah, to dedicate it to him. Hello? Shalom. Let me look at something. Let's look at what it means to dedicate the house. He wants to dedicate a house to Yahuwah. He wants to dedicate a house to Yahuwah. So let's look at our language and let's see what it means for him to dedicate a house to Yahuwah. This is his desire. This is what he wants to do. We have to turn around and we have to be set back and have the same mind that we have a desire to dedicate a house to Yahuwah. And when we sit back and look at that, it's simply Kadash. It's simply to set it apart. So that means that we have to determine to set ourselves apart to be a house for Yahuwah. Now let's sit back and let's see how we would go about doing that. Let's look at Is it 2 Chronicles chapter 20 that I want? Let me see if it's 2 Chronicles chapter 20. It's in my head, but I don't think that's what it is. No, that ain't the one. That's not it. That is not it. That is not it. 2 Chronicles chapter 31. 2 Chronicles chapter 31. I want you to look at 2 Chronicles chapter 31 and about verse 7. Make it verse 6. When we look at 2 Chronicles chapter 31 and verse 6. And behind this you'll get yourself John chapter 17 and about verse 17. It was Solomon's desire to dedicate or to sanctify or to make Kadash a house for Yahuwah. It should be your desire to make a house set apart for Yahuwah. That should be your desire. That's what the master's desire was, which is to make a house set apart for Yahuwah. You have to make your house, your tabernacle, your fleshly body a place for him to dwell in. That's what the objective is when we turn around and we look at this. We're trying to just finish up the verses that we already read. We're going to touch one thing in 1 Chronicles 16, and then we're going to look at Ezekiel chapter 40, and we're going to see if we're going to be sacrificing bulls and goats in the kingdom of Shamahim. Because that matter there will not be left untouched this evening if Yahuwah leave breath in my lungs. We will look at that. This has been literally 12 months. We've been holding this literally a year. Literally. And Yahuwah willing is the day it come out. Today is the day it come out. Verse 6 of 2 Chronicles chapter 31. And concerning the children of Yasharal and Yehudah that dwell in the cities of Yehudah, they also brought in the tithe of oxen and sheep and the tithe of Kadesh things, which were consecrated unto Yahuwah their Elohim, and laid them by heaps. And in the 3rd month they began to lay the foundation of the heaps, and finished them in the 7th month. Now I'm going to ask y'all a question, gentlemen. What happens in the 3rd month? They say they began to lay the foundation of these heaps in the 3rd month, and they finished it in the 7th. What happens in the 3rd month? What is the significance in the 3rd month to a Yahudi? First fruit. That's Pentecost. Would we not say the foundation of the house was laid in Pentecost? So what's the significance of the 7th month then, gentlemen? Tabernacles. The finishing of the house. So the reason why I'm looking at this here is, as easy as it is to, oh man, that's simple. We have to mention it because it can easily be overlooked. Because it's not in there for no reason. So you take our time with this one here, man. You just don't want to overlook nothing. I'm talking about point by point, bit by bit. Now, of course, we know this man didn't build the house in 4 months, but he's showing us something. That I began the process of laying the foundation to build this house on Pentecost, and I'm going to finish my house on Tabernacles. Again, pointing to when he was going to return. Verse 8. And when Hezekiah and the princes came and saw the heaps, they Baruch Yahuwah and his people Yasharal. And Hezekiah questioned with the priest and the Levites concerning the heaps. And Azariah, the chief priest of the house of Zadok, answered him and said, since the people began to bring offerings into the house of Yahuwah, we had enough to eat and have plenty. For Yahuwah hath baruched his people, and that which is left is this great store. Then Hezekiah commanded to prepare chambers in the house of Yahuwah, and they prepared them, and brought in the offerings and the tithes to dedicate things faithfully, over which Coniah the Levite was ruler, and Shemaiah's brother was next. And Jehiel and Azariah and Nahath and Ashael and Jeremoth and Jozabad and Eliel and Iskamiah and Mahath and Benaiah were overseers under the hand of Coniah and Shemaiah's brother at the commandment of Hezekiah the king, and Azariah the ruler of the house of Elohim. And Korah the son of Imnah the Levite, the porter towards the east, was over the freewill offerings of Elohim, to distribute the oblations of Yahuwah and the most Kadesh things. And next him were Eden, and Menamin, and Yahushah, and Shemaiah, and Amariah, and Shekinah, and the city of the priests, and their set office to give to their brethren by courses, as well to the greatest to the small. And besides their genealogy of males from 3 years old and upward, even unto every one that entered into the house of Yahuwah, his daily portion for their service and their charges according to their courses, both to the genealogy of the priests by the house of their fathers, and the Levites from 20 years old and upwards in the charge by their courses. And into the genealogy of their little ones, their wives and their sons and their daughters, through all the congregation, for in their set office they sanctify themselves in Kadosh. Now that's the reason why we looked at all these men through all this period from the 3rd to the 7th month of laying down this foundation of this house. And they say everything in this house, we had everything we needed, and we're looking at the free will offerings and all of these things. But then what we looked at is the whole key thing, what we came here for really was verse 18. It say the genealogy of all the little ones, and the wives and the sons and the daughters throughout the whole body and their set office. They set themselves apart by Kadosh. Now again, we looking at dedicating yourself as a house to Elohim. You have to set yourself apart in this fashion. If you're going to sit back and say you want to build a house for Elohim, you have to set yourself apart in this fashion. Before we even look at what I just mentioned, John 17 and 17, look at 2 Corinthians, my apology, 7 and 1. 2 Corinthians 7 and 1, as I look up this word real fast. You know, thank Yahuwah for the word. So what we're looking at this evening to a certain extent at this juncture of what we're looking at. And when we look at office in this particular place, and that 2 Chronicles 31 and 18, when he say he's for in a set office, it is a munah or faith. Hello? Hello? So, in order to sanctify yourselves in Kadosh, like we read about the Levites in their set office, to sanctify yourself in this purpose, you have to do it by faith. That's interesting, isn't it? So in order for us to dedicate this house of Yahuwah, it's where your faith come in at. And this is again going to point to what we're going to look at in Ezekiel chapter 40. So when we look at Solomon, and Solomon knowing that the Father had told him that you will build me a house, he had to believe that Yahuwah would give him the provisions to be able to build that house. Well, these Levites sat back and they looked at with all of these things, by our firmness and steadfastness in our faith in Yahuwah, we will sanctify ourselves by Kadosh or by his word. For as the Torah states, be ye Kadosh, for I am Kadosh. So in order for us to be able to dedicate a house to Yahuwah, you must believe and be able to set yourself apart accordingly. 2 Corinthians 7 and 1. But before we read 2 Corinthians 7 and 1, I would be remiss if we don't read 2 Corinthians 6 and 16 based on what we read in 2 Chronicles 31, and it will lead straight to 7 and 1, and it'll make it a lot better. So let's look at 2 Corinthians 6 and 16. And then we'll look at John 17 and 17. And then we'll look at Acts chapter 26 and verse 14. Bear with me, because like I said, we're going to hit a lot of precepts this evening for this matter. We're going to be very thorough and very detailed. And if I'm moving too fast, just... No, Corinthians, huh? Yes, ma'am. 6 and 16, yes, ma'am. 2 Corinthians 6 and 16, everybody. 2 Corinthians 6 and 16. 2 Corinthians 6 and 16, and then John 17 and 17. And then good grief. Acts 26 and 14. So we begin in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and about verse 16. And what agreement have the temple of Elohim with idols? For you are the temple of the living Elohim. As Elohim has said, I will dwell in them and will walk in them, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate, saith Yahuwah, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you. And you shall be my sons and daughters, saith Yahuwah Almighty. So again, we see this again when we talk about the wives and the little ones and the sons and the daughters of the Levites, of those who are joined to Yahuwah. We know that I and my Father are one. Make them perfect in one. There's neither bond nor free, nor male nor female in the body of Mashiach. All of them, by faith, sanctify themselves by Kadesh. So this sitting back letting all us know whether it's, and the reason why I mention this because I seen a post Lady was talking about something, which we know a lot of them One West camps make it just seem like no women can get in the kingdom of Shamahim. And the only way a woman can get in the kingdom of Shamahim is if she got a husband. If she ain't got no husband, she can't get in the kingdom. But we know that's pure and utter nonsense. You should know that from the widow woman in Luke chapter 2, who was a widow for like 80 years, who was sitting at the temple speaking of things, prophesying of Mashiach for an entire life. Now, I know our sisters know this here. I'm just reiterating it for the simple fact that y'all on here. And then also, if any woman look on this and see this later on, if Yahuwah wills, don't let nobody tell you that you need a man to get in the kingdom of Shamahim. You don't need no man to get in no kingdom. The only man you need to get in the kingdom of Shamahim is Yahushua HaMashiach. That's the only man you need to get in the kingdom with.
I just said stop.
You know what I'm saying? You don't need no man to get in no kingdom. All a woman need a man for is to manifest the word for her to hear it, believe it, and walk in it. You know what I'm saying? And everybody needs that. So that's not mutually exclusive. You know what I'm saying? So don't let nobody tell you that, oh, if you ain't married, you ain't got no covering, you're not going to be saved. That's a lie from hell. The book don't say that. The book say, hear, O Yasharal. Yahuwah your Elohim is a God. He didn't say, hear all men. He said, hear all Yasharal. You read in Deuteronomy 29, it said, your wives, your little ones, and the stranger, all y'all were there. All y'all heard the word. That's why he mentioned, that's why Paul say, that Elohim quoted, say, you'll be my sons and daughters. And we see Chronicles is telling us the same thing. So don't let nobody tell you you need a man to have your soul saved. That is a lie from hell. You do not need no husband to get you saved. You only need one husband to get you saved. You know who your husband is. And for truth be told, we his bride, so male and female, he all our husband. That's who you need to be saved. 2 Corinthians 7:1. Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and ruach, perfecting Kadesh and the fear of Elohim. Now let's look at John 17:17. So knowing that he promises that he said, you'll be my sons and daughters, and that he will literally dwell in you and you dwell in him. Because he said, I seek to dedicate a house for my Elohim. He said, Shamahim and Shamahim can't contain you. How much more this house I build? Because the man's seeking to live in you. But you're going to have to dedicate your house. You're going to have to set it apart in Kadesh for him to dwell in. And you got, it says Solomon was determined to do this. So it was his desire. It has to be in your heart to do it. It was in Hamashiach's heart to dedicate a house to Elohim. That's why he was willing to die. It was in his heart to do it. I'm going to sanctify myself so he can have a house because it's in my heart to do it. Is it in your heart? Are you determined to dedicate a house to this man and your set office in Kadesh? Because all that's sitting here telling us is one key thing. It's your desire to set apart your body for Yahuwah to dwell, and by your faith you will sanctify yourself. You cannot be sanctified with a lukewarm, weak, and non-existent faith in Yahuwah by Hashem Yahushua. You can't do it. That's going to go against the book. I don't know why people think that Yahuwah would operate against the book as forth as it comes to our souls being saved, or the justification or damnation of themselves or of others. Either or. He said, you shall be justified by your sayings, or you shall be condemned by your sayings. 17th chapter of John. Another thing just hit my head. Sitting there talking about a woman need a man to be saved, when the book say a woman who a virgin don't need to say seek the thing to keep herself in Kadesh and body and Ruach, and seek to please the master. So I guess any woman who decide not to be married, I guess she going to hell then. Because all she want to do is dedicate herself to serving Yahuwah. Some of these dudes, I'm talking about, I don't even understand these dudes, man. Like, well, now what I'm talking about, Quandra, you ain't even seen what I'm talking about. You ain't even seen what I'm talking about. If you seen what I'm talking about, you probably be a little uneasy. Because we talking about those of our people that know that we Hebrews, and how they speak, deal, and regulate women in the word. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very bad. Very, 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 very bad. I had never heard anyone say that a woman needed a man to be saved until I found out I was a brute and came across these dudes. I had never heard anyone utter those words before. They're very adamant about that. It seems they go so hard on women to the point that you would think all you niggas homosexual. Seriously. You know what I'm saying? It seems like they have an utter contempt for women. You know what I'm saying? Some people feel that way about me. But that's only because we don't go for a lot of things that other brews go for. You know what I'm saying? We just go with the book say, no, this woman can't preach. No, this woman ain't got no business correcting her husband. No, she can't wear makeup or jewelry or weave and all this other stuff, because that's what the book say. Not because we want to stifle or run over or be a tyrant over our woman. That's just what the book says. You know what I'm saying? That's what Yahuwah requires. That's on her if she want to do it. I'm not going to bend the standard because you don't think that doesn't matter. Because it's not up to me. Yahuwah said what he said. That's what he requires. You either meet it or be damned. Meet it or be saved. Choice is yours. You know what I'm saying? But these dudes are a little harder than that. They're not standing on what the word says is forth as conduct. Yeah, correct. It's not me. When you look at a woman correcting a man, when you look at Nabal and Abigail, it says that Nabal was a son of Belial and that you couldn't even tell him nothing. And you don't read her correcting her husband in any shape, form, or fashion. You pretty much just leave that up to Yahuwah and let him handle that. Do you know what I'm saying? You can bring your concerns to your husband and say, hey, when you do this, that, there, and the third, this is how this makes me feel. You know what I'm saying? Or this is how this affects me. But as far as like outright correcting him and saying you wrong or you doing this wrong, no, that wouldn't, a wise woman wouldn't do that. She'll just go ahead and let Yahuwah get it. Because he will correct him. You know what I'm saying? All you just got to do is just keep back and serving Yahuwah. You know what I'm saying? You don't correct him with the word. Yes, ma'am. You don't correct him with the word. You don't correct him in life. You know what I'm saying? You just let him have that. Even if you know the direction that he's going could be wrong. And you feel that is wrong. You just state your case. And you don't, and when I say this here is when I say using a little bit of skill. You wouldn't come at him and be like, when you did this here, this was wrong. You would just state your viewpoint, hold your peace, and let it go. You know what I'm saying? Just slide on out the way. But if he out of pocket, word-wise, oh no, y'all keep y'all mouth closed. Let Yahuwah get him. I guarantee you Yahuwah will get him. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I say this here, even without the word, so on a natural level, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to get very far with a man if you come up trying to correct him. Because then it's going to be a situation where he's not going to look at you that you're his woman. He's going to look at you as if you his mother, and they're going to resist. You know what I'm saying? It come with time, you know what I'm saying, and a little experience, but and a little skill. But you can, if you got it, you can be able to let your man know that he did something that was wrong if you know how to relay it. You know what I'm saying? The way he won't take it that way. Because I've noticed that my entire life. Most dudes ain't trying to have no woman correct them on nothing. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to take it very well. You know what I'm saying? They're going to resist. They're going to fight back. Like, who does she think she is? But I can say for me, I dealt with a woman where she knew how to let me know, like, yeah, you should have did this. Like this here, she knew how to relay it to where I wouldn't come at her like that. She just knew how to do it. You know what I'm saying? You just got to recognize and know the man that you're dealing with, and then know how to relay that to him. And if you take that track with a little gentleness and how you do it, you can probably get him to do what you want him to do or go the way that you want him to go. You know what I'm saying? Then just outright, you wrong, this, that, and the third, you won't be able to get him. John 17:17. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. As thou hast sent me into the world, even so I also sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. Well, we know the Torah is truth. That's what the book say. And that the Torah is Kadesh. So Kadesh would be truth. So when we sit back and say that we through our faith, we sanctify ourselves by Kadesh, that's what we're looking at. And we know we dedicating or we sanctifying or making our bodies Kadesh. We're offering ourselves as a living sacrifice. Gather my Kadeshim together that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. That means you've ratified the agreement, because the ruins shall be raised as in the days of old. So I will give you you had a natural body, but now you'll get a spiritual body. Let's look at this Acts 26:14. Acts 26 and 14. Acts 26 and 14. Acts 26 and 14. We'll make it 13. At midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from Shamahim, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me, and them went journeying with me. And when we were fallen to their rats, I heard a voice speak unto me, saying in the Ibrahim tongue, Shaul, Shaul, why persecute thou me? Is it hard for thee to kick against the pricks? And I said, Who art thou, master? And he said, I am YAHUAH, whom thou persecute. But rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness both of these things which thou hast seen, and of the things in the which I will appear unto thee, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles unto whom now I send thee, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, from the power of Hashatan unto Elohim, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. So that's how we see the good thing that we seen in 2 Chronicles 31 about they set their offices or their amunah and sanctified themselves in Kadash. They sanctified themselves by their faith in Yahuwah. In order for us to be able to have a house for this man to dwell, we must sanctify ourselves by our faith in Yahuwah. Romans chapter 10, verse 14. Since I've been saying it, you might as well look at it. And then it makes these words here resonate a little differently. You know what I'm saying? And all we're looking at is to be able to have this man to have a house, you got to set yourself apart. But all this we're dealing with, whether y'all realize it or see that we're creeping upon it, is to deal with these offerings and sacrifices that are in Ezekiel. It's just a bit by bit, step by step process. But Yahuwah willing, we will meet it and will make complete sense. And then no one will be able to even offer nor proffer to you that they will be offering sacrifices in the kingdom of Shamahim. And you would look at them and say, obviously, you know not the scriptures nor the power of Elohim. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe on him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of shalom and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Yeshayahu saith Yahuwah, who have believed our report. So then faith come by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim. But I say it, have they not heard? Yes, truly their sound went out into all their rats, and their words unto the ends of the world. Hello? Hello? But I say, did not Yasharal know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you. But Yeshayahu is very bold, and saith, I was found of them that sought me not, and I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. But to Yasharal he saith, all day long have I stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. Now, you know what that man is telling you? That man said, I done gave you this word, I done gave you this report, and these Gentiles who ain't even called after my name, they come looking to set themselves apart through faith. But he said, but this people who I stretch my arms out to, which is showing you when the master was up there on that stake and his arms were stretched out, that these was some rebellious, trash-talking, disobedient people. That's what we were showing. That man was right up there on the tree with his hand stretched out unto a people who were called by a name, and they were rebellious and gainsaying. Come on off the tree if you be the son of Elohim. Talking trash the whole time. Bucking the whole time. He up there arms stretched out telling you to come to me. Please, you called by my name. It wasn't a Hebrew that said truly this was the son of Elohim. It was a Roman centurion. He wasn't called by the man's name. Have to look at stuff like that, man. And we have to make sure we don't make the same mistakes of our forefathers as being a rebellious, gainsaying people. We have to watch that. That's what caused many many of your forefathers to perish. That's what caused Korah and his whole household to perish. Gainsaying and being disobedient and bucking. Straight like that. 2 Chronicles chapter 2 though. Praise Yahuwah for the word. Thank Yahuwah for the word. Now, we were in verse 4 and we're going to conclude at verse 6 with this portion of what we're looking at. But before we do that, let me get 1 Chronicles 16:1 because I did say we were going to look at it. We were only going to look at about 3 verses in 1 Chronicles 16. That's all we were going to look at. So let's do that first. 1 Chronicles 16:1. Both of them calls dropped. I can't call Tony by it. That's an international call. I don't think we got that type of service. 1 Chronicles 16:1. So they brought the ark of Elohim and set it in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And they offered burnt offerings and burnt sacrifices and shalom offerings before Elohim. And when David made an end to offering the burnt offerings and the shalom offerings, he baruched the people in the name of Yahuwah. And he dealt to every one of Yasharal, both man and woman, to every one a loaf of bread, and a good piece of flesh, and a flagon of wine. And he appointed certain of the Levites to minister before the ark of Yahuwah, and to record, and to thank, and to praise Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal. What do y'all think verse 1 mean? Who got an idea of what verse 1 could be talking about? Who got an idea of what verse 1 could be talking about? Anybody got an idea? Anybody want to take a swing? It don't matter. You know what I'm saying? I'll read it again for you. So they brought the ark of Elohim and set it in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it, and they offered burnt sacrifices and peace offerings before Elohim. Anybody got any idea what this could be talking about? Anybody? Well, let's look at it. When we said about set it in the midst of the tent, let's look about setting that in the midst of the tent. In the midst of the tent. Because remember, this is the temporary place. The house of Elohim had not been built at this point. So let's look at the tent. The tent should be a key word that you should be able to wager what we could be discussing here. We look at tent, and it's Ohel. Nomad's tent. Symbolic of wilderness life or transience or dwelling, a home, or a habitation. Or the tabernacle of witness. So when we look at him saying setting the ark of Elohim in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it, and then they offered burnt offerings and sacrifices, and they offered peace offerings. Again, does anybody got an idea of what we could sit back and be thinking about when it comes to this? Now, when we look at that, the pitched for it, it is natah, and it means to stretch out, to extend, to spread out, to pitch, to incline, to bend, to bow, to stretch, to offer. Spread out, to thrust aside or to thrust away. So let's sit back and look at this when we say they brought the ark of Elohim and set it in the midst of the tent that David pitched for. Go to Hebrews 2:14 first. And then after Hebrews 2:14, Matthew chapter 3 and about verse 17. And then we'll go from there. And we will go from there. Lamar, could you retrieve that water out of the freezer for me if you don't mind, please, ma'am? I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Hebrews 2:14, everybody. Praise Yahuwah for the word. The word is good and the word is right. All those who will not believe and adhere to it will burn straight in the lake where the worm dieth not and the fire shall not be quenched. And there will be no exceptions. All those who believed and obeyed Their souls will be preserved, and they will dwell with Elohim forever and ever and see his face and dwell with him continually. Hebrews 2:14 says this, for as much then as children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had power of death, that is the devil, and deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. For truly he took not on the nature of Malachim, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. So he thrust away and cast away that nature, because remember we were looking at it making his ruins as in the days of old. He cast away the nature of Shamahim and became a man, and pitched a tent for the ark of Elohim, or the covenant of Elohim, or the ruach of Elohim to dwell in, that they may make offerings of burnt offerings and shalom offerings. So basically a furnace of affliction and a covenant of peace, that our souls might be saved. So let's look at Matthew chapter 3 and let's see what it says. So we turn around, and that means again what I mentioned, what was in Psalms 50 about gather my Kadeshim together that made a covenant with me by sacrifice. That's telling us that we need to do the same thing. That we need to set our bodies, set our offices, say to be set in your office and sanctify yourself by Kadesh, or by your faith sanctify yourself by YAHUAH. And you need to sanctify yourself to be able to build a house. You need to dedicate the house. Which means you need to set it apart. Set your mind, heart, and body apart, that this man's house may be built. Because in that house continually will be burnt offerings and peace offerings. And when you understand what that means, it's going to make Ezekiel chapter 40 a lot more heavier. Well, I ain't going to say heavier, lighter. Let me rephrase that. Light for us, heavy for those who are unlearned and lack understanding. Let me state it that way. And not 3 and 17, my people. Let me say 3 and 13. Matthew 3 and 13. My apologies. 3 and 13. Then come Yahushua from Galilee to Jordan unto Yachanan to be immersed of him. But Yachanan forbade him, saying, I have need to be immersed of thee, come thou to me. Yahushua answered and said unto him, suffer it be so now, for it thus become us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he suffered it. And Yahushua, when he was immersed, went up straightway out of the water, and lo, the Shamahim were opened unto him. And he saw the ruach of Elohim descending like a dove and lighting upon him. Well, we know that the ruach of Elohim, or the new covenant, is the law written in your heart and in your inward parts, which means that is the ark of the covenant, or the word, or the son dwelling inside of you. So what we see here is we see that they brought the ark of Elohim and set it right in the midst of the tent that David pitched for. They put it right in Mashiach that he had pitched for. He was already ordained to become a man before he stepped on this earth to die for you. And they set it right there in form. And after that, they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Elohim. This man went through the furnace of affliction. He was your burnt offering and he was your peace offering after this occurred for him. And then after this happens, then you, like I said in verse 2, you're able to be blessed of Elohim. Because now you can receive the Ruach HaKodesh and your sins can be forgiven, as we've read so far. And when we look at both man and woman of Yasharal, a loaf of bread and a good piece of flesh and flagon of wine, you already know what that is. That's the Master's Supper. Take, eat, this is my body. Drink, this is my blood. So again, this is showing you how sacrifices are made in the house. Now let's go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 2. 2 Chronicles chapter 2. Second Chronicles chapter 2. And we stopped at about verse 4. Say, behold, I build a house to the name of YAHUAH my Elohim to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual shewbread, for the burnt offerings morning and evening on the Shabbats and on the new moons and on the solemn feasts of YAHUAH Elohim. This is an ordinance forever to Yasharal. And the house which I build is great, for great is our Elohim above all Elohims. But who is able to build him a house, seeing Shamahim and Shamahims cannot contain him? Who am I then that I should build him a house, save only to burn sacrifice before him? Well, we know who was able to build him a house. We've established that. That was Mashiach. But then we sit back and we look at it. This house is for sweet incense. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 1. He says, for sweet incense and for the continual shewbread and the burnt offerings, morning and evening, on Shabbats, on new moons, on solemn feasts. We had to look at this because this is going to go back to the things that we're going to look at in Ezekiel. It's the reason why we're looking at it. But let's look at Ephesians 5 and 1 when it's talking about that sweet incense. That is not in this book. Ephesians 5 and 1. He said, be ye therefore followers of Elohim as dear children, and walk in love as Mashiach also have loved us, and have given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as become Kadeshim. Neither filthiness nor foolish talking nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. For this ye know that no whoremonger, no unclean person, no covetous man who is an idolater have any inheritance in the kingdom of Mashiach and of Elohim. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because these things come the wrath of Elohim upon the children of disobedience. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. Like the book tell you, sinners entice thee, consent thou not. We have to sit back and realize these things cannot come into the house of Elohim. It will defile it, and he that defiles the house of Elohim, Elohim will destroy. Just like you read in 2 Chronicles chapter 7. We defiled the house of Elohim with our detestable sacrifices, our detestable sins, our detestable idolatry that we brought into that house to make it dirty, and therefore he destroyed it. Which is where Paul gets that from, that he that defiles the house of Elohim, Elohim will destroy. This man will destroy you. So if we sit back and we see the house of Elohim as Mashiach made himself a sweet smelling savor, the aroma that he gave off with his sacrifice is the same aroma that we'll give off with our sacrifice when we sacrifice ourselves in Kadesh and serve this man in the beauty of Kadesh and perfecting the fear of Elohim. Knowing that we have these great promises, we sanctify, we purify ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and ruach, like we read in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 1. All these things have to be removed in order for this man to dwell in that house. How many of you have really sat back and say that I am dedicating my house for Yahuwah to dwell in, that the only thing that I may do in it is to offer burnt offerings? The trial of your faith being more precious than gold. Think that no strange thing happened to you, for the same afflictions happen to your brethren that are in the world. He said, if you suffer for Mashiach's sake, blessed are you. For he said that the esteem of Elohim rest upon you. See, those are the fiery trial that try you, as some strange thing happened unto you. These things must happen. Your body is you're literally offering the burnt offerings that are supposed to be offered in the temple, morning and evening, on the Shabbats, on the new moons, on the feasts. All these things, they were supposed to be done. So now we sit back and we see that Mashiach did all of these things. That he offered himself as a sacrifice morning and evening, on the Shabbats, on the new moons, on the feast. And now we will begin to look in Ezekiel chapter 40 and begin to see, will there be offerings and sacrifices in the kingdom? And we'll also see, is David that prince that will offer these sacrifices in the kingdom, as some men allude? Or is it a lack of understanding of the scriptures? Let's see what the books say. Ezekiel 40 and 1. Everybody cool? Are y'all all right? I thank Yahuwah for the word. I just hope y'all all right. I hope you understand what we looked at so far. Ezekiel 40 and 1. It says this. In the 5th and 20th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was smitten, in the selfsame day the hand of Yahuwah was upon me and brought me thither. In the visions of Elohim brought he me into the land of Yasharal, and set me upon a very high mountain, by which was the frame of a city on the south. And he brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand, and a measuring reed, and he stood in the gate. And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears. Set thy heart upon all that I shall show thee. For to the intent that I might show them unto thee art thou brought hither. Declare all that thou see to the house of Yasharal. And behold, a wall on the outside of the house round about, and the man's hands a measuring reed of 6 cubits long, by the cubit and the handbreadth. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. And he came unto the gate which looked toward the east, and went up the stairs thereof, and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, and the other threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad. Now we're going to stop right there. We just established that this is the house, and these are all these things that this man says is going to be built in this place. But we want to look at something in verse 2 that we've seen. We just want to see what the Hebrew word for visions is in this place. And is it the same word like we read in Hosea chapter 12? And it is not the same word. Here it is marah, and it is a vision or a mode of revelation or a mirror. But yet again, it's showing you forth a similitude or a likeness of something like we read in Hosea chapter 12. So let's look at Ezekiel 40, and let's see if we can look at verse 45 and 46. Let's look at 45 and 46, but we'll look at 44. And without the inner gate were the chambers of the singers in the inner court, which is at the side of the north gate. And their prospect was towards the south, one at the side of the east gate, having the prospect toward the north. And he said unto me, this chamber whose prospect is toward the south is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house. The chambers whose prospect is towards the north is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok among the sons of Levi, which come near to Yahuwah to minister unto him. Does anybody know who Zadok is? Do any of y'all know who that man is? Is anybody familiar with who Zadok is or Zadok is? Does anybody know who that man is? I'll take that silence as no one knows who that is. When we look at the word prospect in this particular verse, it says panem in its face, faces, presence, or person, or face of seraphims, or cherubim, or face or surface of the ground. Let's look at who Zadok is. I think we're going to need to go to the book of Numbers to show you who Zadok is and what he did and how he got an eternal priesthood and why his name is mentioned in this particular passage. Not Numbers. Second Samuel 15 and 24. Second Samuel 15 and 24. Forgot, that's David's priest. And there's a reason why he has this priesthood. 2 Samuel 15 and 24. There we go. Let's see what we got here. Make it 22. 2 Samuel 15 and 22. And David said to Ittai, go and pass over. And Ittai the Gittite passed over, and all his men, and all the little ones that were with him. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king also himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over towards the way of the wilderness. And lo, Zadok also. And the Levites were with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of Elohim. And they set down the ark of Elohim. And Abiathar went up unto all the people had done passing out of the city. And the king said to Zadok, carry back the ark of Elohim into the city. And if I shall find favor in the eyes of Yahuwah, he will bring me again and show me both it and his habitation. But if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, behold, here am I. Let him do to me as seemed good unto him. The king also said unto Zadok the priest, art not thou a seer? Return into the city in Shalom, you and your 2 sons, Amahaz thy son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. Now we sit back and look at this is David's. This Zadok rode with David. And you notice that he also said to Zadok, are you not also a prophet? Now he was a priest and a prophet. And this is also a similitude of Mashiach with him being a priest and a prophet. But I'm trying to recall the story, because that's not what I want, but it still worked out well. Or where he got his priesthood, and it's escaping my mind right now. It is escaping my mind right now. We look in chapter 19 and see if 19 is what it is, where he get his priesthood. But also you'll see the sons of Zadok being there, obviously, because they were joined to David. So the sons of Zadok would also be joined to Hamashiach. But let me look at something real fast, now that I think about it. One second, y'all. When we look at Zadok, it means righteous. Now, Zadok joined David after Saul's death, and he supported him against Absalom and Adonai when they came against him, when they came against David. And this is one of the reasons why I think it might be 2 Kings chapter 2. Let's look at 2 Kings chapter 2. I think that's where it's mentioned. My memory serves me right. Look in 2 Kings chapter 2 if it's got what I'm looking for. I'm sorry, 1 Kings chapter 2, not 2 Kings. I should have known better than that. That's right, Zadok blew the thing before him. He ain't mentioned that. When you go look in 1 Kings chapter 1, you'll see where Zadok is mentioned, and he's the one who actually anointed Solomon. So when we sit back and we look at that the sons of Zadok, or the sons of the righteous, in Ezekiel chapter 40, so pull back over there, and it says, those are the keepers of the charge of the altar. These are the sons of the righteous among the sons of Levi, which come near to Yahuwah to minister unto him. This is what we'll look at. In 1 Peter chapter 2, it states that how he made us a Kadesh priesthood. So for all intents and purposes, when we're joined to Mashiach, because he said, whosoever whomsoever I send, receive me, and whosoever receive me, receive him that sent me. And we also looked at last week, I said in Malachi chapter 2, verse 7, that the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and the people shall seek the law at his mouth. So those that are teachers and preachers of the word are in actuality priests, and would be after the order of Levi, though not in actuality of the tribe of Levi. So therefore those sons of righteousness would be one to be ministering unto him, because Zadok was considered to be a righteous man because of his works. See, it's a lot of things that we sit back and we say somebody's righteous, and this, that, they're in the third, or they're a good person, and this, that, they're in the third. But do they works line up with being righteous before Yahuwah for that determination? Now remember, now Zadok was a high priest, if I'm not mistaken, but he was of the sons of Aaron. But you're going to look at when we read in Ezekiel chapter 40 and whatever other chapters that we in, that the sons of Aaron are not mentioned. Aaron is not going to be mentioned in Ezekiel at all. You will not find his name, and you will not notice his name. And the reason why would that be important when we go to read about the offerings that will be made in this place. Now let's swing right here, because I'm looking at this stuff a little standard. Ezekiel 43 and verses 18 and 19, these specific verses, because he asked about these specific verses. So let's look at Ezekiel 43 and about verse 18. And I think we'll go down a little further past what he had. Now remember, right, I want y'all to hold this Ezekiel 43. Come to Numbers 18. I want to show you why it's important while we're reading about Zadok and the Levites, what you're going to read, and why it's not contradictory to the law. Because you know you're under the priesthood of Melchizedek. Well, the priesthood of Melchizedek is an eternal priesthood, and it's a different priesthood than the priesthood of Aaron. Because the priesthood of Aaron, as we know, as it's written in Hebrews chapter 7, is a priesthood after a carnal commandment. Though the priesthood of Melchizedek is after an oath, according to Psalms 110. And it's not after a carnal commandment. So let's look at Numbers chapter 18, and let's look in the Torah, and let's see what we find. I just lost the page, so my apologies. Numbers 18:1. And it says, and Yahuwah said unto Aaron, thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary. Thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood. And thy brethren also of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of thy father, bring thou with thee, that they may be joined unto thee, and minister unto thee. But thou and thy sons with thee shall minister before the tabernacle of witness. And they shall keep thy charge and the charge of all the tabernacle. Only they shall come not nigh the vessels of the sanctuary and the altar, that neither they nor you also die. And they shall be joined unto thee, and keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation for all the service of the tabernacle. And a stranger shall not come nigh unto you. And you shall keep the charge of the sanctuary, the charge of the altar, that there be no wrath any more upon the children of Yasharal. And behold, I have taken your brethren the Levites from among the children of Yasharal to you, and they are given as a gift for Yahuwah to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Therefore thou and thy sons with thee shall keep your priest offices for everything of the altar within the veil, and ye shall serve. And I have given you your priest office unto you as a service of gift, and the stranger that come nigh shall be put to death. So when we turn around and we look at it, the priests or the Levites were given to assist Aaron. When we look at Aaron and his sons, you're looking at those that are born of Mashiach. Specifically in this instance, the 12 apostles. Now let's come back to Ezekiel 43. And it'll make what's being read here line up a little bit and make more sense to you, because you'll see where it comes from out of the law. That's why we went ahead and read Numbers 18 first. And we'll just sit back and look at where it comes from out of the law. Ezekiel 43 and 18. And he said unto me, Son of man, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, these are the ordinances of the altar in the day when thou shalt make it, to offer burnt offerings thereon, and to sprinkle blood thereon. Thou shalt give to the priests the Levites that be of the seed of Zadok, which approach unto me to minister unto me, saith Yahuwah Elohim, a young bullock for a sin offering. So now he says something about a sin offering. Thou shalt take of the blood thereof, and put it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the settle, and upon the border round about. Thus shalt thou cleanse and purge it. Thou shalt take the bullock also of the sin offering, and he shall burn it in the appointed place of the house, without the sanctuary. And on the second day thou shalt offer a kid of the goats without blemish for a sin offering, and they shall cleanse the altar as they did cleanse it with the bullock. And when thou hast made an end of cleansing it, thou shalt offer a young bullock without blemish, and a ram out of thy flock without blemish. And thou shalt offer them before Yahuwah, and the priest shall cast salt upon them, and they shall offer them up for a burnt offering unto Yahuwah. 7 days shalt thou prepare every day a goat for a sin offering. Thou shalt also prepare a young bullock and a ram out of thy flock without blemish. 7 days shalt thou purge the altar and purify it, and they shall consecrate themselves. And when these days are expired, it shall be upon the 8th day, and so forward. The priest shall make your burnt offerings upon the altar, and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, saith Yahuwah. Now he's telling you about how many of y'all think that there's literally going to be offerings in this place. Because he just ran down sin offerings, burnt offerings. They say if Mashiach was this greatest offering, then why are they talking about sin offerings and cleansing the altar and all of these bullocks? Why is he talking about this? Well, let's look and see something. First and foremost, he said all things are done after the pattern of the things of Shamahim, like we read in Hebrew chapter 9. So what Ezekiel is seeing, he said, he's told you he's seeing a vision. He's seeing a pattern of the things of Shamahim. Let's get some understanding. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Keep a point now. Only Aaron and his sons can do this here according to the law. So these dudes got to know the law now. When people make this statement, you got to know the law. That's why we went and read that in Numbers 18 first. See what the law say. Now let's look at 1 Corinthians 15 and let's see what else it say. 1 Corinthians 15 and 50. Remember now, Ezekiel is seeing Ezekiel is seeing a pattern of the things in Shamayim. That's what Hebrews 9 told us. This is a pattern of the things in Shamayim. So what he's seeing is the pattern of the things in Shamayim. Do we really believe that young goats and bullocks are being sacrificed in Shamayim? Do you really believe that the altar needs to be cleansed in Shamayim? Or are we actually seeing a pattern of what occurred in Shamayim to prepare us for an eternal bliss, so to speak? Because all you need to remember is Revelation 13:8. He said, this is the lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. Remember, he told Moses in Exodus 25 to make that tabernacle to the exact pattern that I showed you in the mountain. And ain't that something that you got Ezekiel up there in this mountain, and he's getting shown the exact pattern of the house, just like Moses did, and he was told to tell it to the people in the exact pattern as he saw it. Is that not what occurred? Is that not what we seen? Hold on one second, y'all. That just blows. I'll come back to it in a minute. 1 Corinthians 15:50. Now I say this, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. But behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. Now, if we are sacrificing animals, and on top of that offering sin offerings, that means corruption as inherited incorruption. And we know from the Torah that that cannot happen. How do we know that cannot happen from the Torah? Because when Adam committed his trespass, and that they were literally flesh and blood, he put a sword to keep the way of the tree of life, that man could not enter into it. Knowing that Isaiah 51 tells us that Yerushalyim will be made like the Garden of Eden. Knowing that the Master told us in Revelation chapter 2 that those that overcome will be able to eat of the tree of life in the paradise of Elohim. Which is knowing that he told you in Revelation 3:12 that New Yerushalyim would come down from Shamayim from Elohim. We knowing that flesh and blood cannot inherit nor receive that. How another reason why we know this here? Because we know Leviticus chapter 17 and about verse 10 tells us that the life is in the blood. And that I've given you blood to make atonement. Well, Mashiach has already shed his blood. Therefore, he has made the atonement. Now, he told you in the 6th chapter of John in the 63rd verse that the flesh profit nothing, and that the words that I speak unto you are ruach and are life, and they will quicken you and make you alive. We also know that when he resurrected from the dead in Luke chapter 24, that this man say, handle me. A ruach don't have flesh and bones. Not flesh and blood, flesh and bones, as you see me have. He said it was the ruach of Elohim according to Romans chapter 8 by the voice of Paul. That's what rose YAHUAH from the dead. So no, that doesn't mean you're going to be sacrificing animals that got ruach in them and they won't shed no blood. And I ain't saying that for none of y'all. I'm saying that for a smarty art nigga that might slide back around and watch this later. Well, we sitting back looking at this young bullock without blemish and all of these animals to cleanse the altar and all of these things. All these things are referring to Mashiach because he's standing there, because he is all of those sacrifices. Truth be told, Ezekiel is not even looking at a literal house. Revelation 21:24. He's not even looking at a literal house. He was looking at Mashiach the whole time. But he had to have a mirror or a similitude in that vision. He couldn't actually see Mashiach to understand that and know that. It wasn't his time to know that. As he told you in 1 Peter chapter 1 when we first began. Revelation 21:22, I should say. Revelation 21 and 22, I should say. See, some people say, see, everybody, they try to spiritualize everything. You got to understand, ain't nobody trying to spiritualize anything. But you got to understand and know that the man is not actually being showed what he thought he was being showed. He was just given a vision. Even in Ezekiel chapter 20, Ezekiel makes the statement after he broke down to him, what's the word? When he broke down to him about that lake of fire. And he say, They say, surely he speaks in parables. He speaks in a dark saying. Ezekiel was a prophet. A priest and a prophet, just like Zadok. A priest and a prophet, just like Mashiach. A priest and a prophet. A priest and a prophet. Revelation 21 and 22. And I saw no temple therein, for Yahuwah Elohim Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the steam of Elohim did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the Arats do bring their esteem and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. And they shall bring the esteem and honor of the nations into it. So, case in point, when he's looking at this temple, sitting back according to what John's seeing, because John ain't really doing nothing but getting some of the same revelation that Ezekiel got. But he's getting it in greater detail because Mashiach has came and rose, and now he's loosed the seals of the book that you might understand the book. Like he told Daniel, seal the book. The time is not at hand. Close it up. Close it up. Somebody got to come unseal that. And that was Yahushua HaMashiach. Therefore, that's why John's vision is a little bit more detailed than what Ezekiel saw. So when he saw the house, knowing that Mashiach is the house, knowing that we read that in Hebrew chapter 3, knowing that we read that in John chapter 2, we begin to see that it's not young bullocks that are going to be offered. Because we already read in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, cleanse yourself from all filthiness of the flesh and ruach. So when we look at this 1 Corinthians 6 and 14, or maybe I don't want to say 14, about 6 and 11, this will make a little bit more sense. Because flesh and blood can't inherit the kingdom. So if you're flesh and blood, he say the flesh profited nothing. Say the ruach is willing and the flesh is weak. Flesh and blood can't get in there because flesh and blood gonna sin. Flesh and ruach ain't gonna sin. Because the ruach would have overcame the flesh. Say, be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. It's the ruach would have caused you to overcome the flesh. That's what brings forth life. He told you, quicken me through thy precepts and I shall live. We'll make it 6 and 9. 1 Corinthians 6 and 9. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of Elohim? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of Elohim. And such were some of you, but ye are washed. He said now that you had to wash this altar. Let's look at something with this altar. He said you washed now. He said, but ye are sanctified and ye are justified by the name of the Master Yahushua and the Ruach of our Elohim. So when we sit back and you looking at cleansing the altar, and we sit back and look at the regeneration, you can sit back and you look at it as if the immersion of cleansing the altar, or the Ruach is what cleansed the altar and makes it clean. Because he just told you this. Now let's look at this here. Where we at? Ezekiel 43. I got to get in the right chapter. My apologies on this app. Let's look at something here. Let's look at the cleanse and the purge. The cleanse and the purge. When we look at that, that is katan. That is to sin, to miss the way, to go wrong, to incur guilt, or to purify from uncleanliness. To make a sin offering, to purify from sin. Or to purify themselves from uncleanliness. And now we look at purge. And it is kafar, which is to purge, to make atonement, to make reconciliation, to cover with the pitch, to coat or to cover, to pacify, to participate, to atone for sin, to make atonement for. Let's look at Romans chapter 3, about verse 17. 1 John chapter 2, and about verse 1. And Revelation 16 and 15. Romans 3 and 17. So when we turn around and we look at this here to cover, what is the thing that's going to cover the sins? It's the Ruach. So that means, though, when he sit back and he say to do this to cleanse the altar, those who are standing there for to have this said, these people have the ruach on them. Their sins have been purged. See, when we look at a lot of these things and a lot of brothers see these things, it gives them the thought process that they can be able to still be able to sin and they have time to get right because all these things are going to happen. Now, we know Mashiach is your altar. We dealt with that before when we looked at that stuff in Exodus 26, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the chapter. Romans 3 and 17, they would be helpful if I was in the right level. Let's see here. Romans 3 and 17. This right here, make it 3 and 19. Now we know that what things soever the Torah saith, it say to them that are under the Torah, that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before Elohim. Therefore the deeds of the Torah, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight, for by Torah is the knowledge of sin. But now the righteousness of Elohim without the Torah is manifested, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets. And what are we looking at is we are looking at the righteousness of Elohim because that would be the Amunah, or you setting your office to sanctify yourself by Kadesh, or you being sanctified by the faith that is in Mashiach. That's the righteousness of Elohim without the Torah. You don't need, well, I'm saying you don't need because you could get you got to have the faith of Mashiach in the law as well. But the righteousness that you seek from Yahuwah, you're not going to get it from the law. You're going to get it from your faith for your Amunah and Mashiach, and through that you'll sanctify yourselves by that faith and walk in it. That's why he tells you the just will live by their faith. Then you will live by those instructions contained in the Torah. Even the righteousness of Elohim, which is by faith of Yahushua HaMashiach, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. Unto all them that believe, there's no difference. Man or woman, there's no difference. It doesn't matter. For all have sinned and come short of the esteem of Elohim, being justified freely by his favor, through the redemption that is in Yahushua HaMashiach, who Elohim has set forth to be the propitiation through faith in his blood, to declare his righteousness for the remission of sins that are past through the forbearance of Elohim. So we sit back and we see this here. That Mashiach being there to cleanse the altar or to cleanse the people, because he said he sprinkled the blood on all the vessels of the ministry. And the altar is a vessel of the ministry. It is for the service. That's what they use it for. And we turn around and we look at it. This is this man cleansing us through his blood and his ruach. Not that you'll be committing sin. Not that there will be need for sin offerings or a chance to get right when the Mashiach gets here. This is not what this is telling you. It is telling you that those people who are there with him have already been cleansed. Because he tells you in Ezekiel 46 that we will all come up and worship on the Shabbats and the new moons, and the gates will be open. That those righteous people that are found worthy to dwell in that place will behold him. Because remember, the Lamb was slain from the foundation of the world. Does that mean the Father killed Mashiach and Shamayim? Does that mean that they were offering bulls and goats in Shamayim? Did they have a literal altar that needed to be cleansed and purged for sin in Shamayim? No. But the pattern was to show you on earth what had been accomplished in Shamayim. And this is why Ezekiel is getting this vision to see what is in Shamayim, that Mashiach has completed all of these things to purge us and to cleanse us and be the propitiation for our sins, that we might be saved and to be covered. To turn from darkness to light, from Hashatan to Elohim, that you might have forgiveness of sins. Only the righteous will dwell there. He said you'll be changed. You know, flesh and blood getting into this place. This is an eternal habitation, an eternal rest. 1 John 2 and 1. My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. If any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Yahushua HaMashiach, the righteous. And he is the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the sins of the world. Hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keep not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keep his word, in him truly is the love of Elohim perfected. Hereby know that we are in him. Remember that the Levites are joined with him in one. They are in him, and he is in them. This is what this is telling us. He is the covering for your sins, to cleanse and to purge. He told you that in Isaiah, wash you, make you clean. How can a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed according to thy word. This is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. He the way, the truth, and the life. This is how you can cleanse your way, by this man's blood, to be sanctified and justified by his name. This is not telling you that I'm going to be offering you some bullocks. He ain't offering no bullocks and shamayim. Think about this, y'all. Just think about this. Just critically think about this. Why would the Most High need to show Ezekiel a pattern of things that he already participates in the natural himself? This man was a high priest. He did those things. He made those sacrifices to cleanse the altar. He did all of these things. All of these things that are being mentioned in Ezekiel 43 is in the law. Why would he need to see that? If it was about offering bulls and goats in the kingdom of Shamayim, why would he need to see that? Because that's not what this is about. This is about showing you how Mashiach has been able to cleanse. He told you in Zephaniah, I'm going to get it in a minute. Let me read this Revelation 16 and 15, and then we'll read this Zephaniah. I'm going to get it in a minute. Praise Yahuwah for the word. Revelation 16 and 15. Behold, I come as a thief. Baruch is he that watch and keep his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. You know, he told you in Romans 13 and 14 to put on Yahushua HaMashiach and make no provisions of the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. Be like your forefather David, he covered himself. Sin was covered. Therefore, he was able to receive the blessing. We got to be able to be covered to receive the blessing. What is our covering? It's the Ruach. That's what covers sin. Remember, wait, the rock, the pathway to the highest that covers sins. Dwell in Mashiach, your sins are covered. This is all this is telling you. This is all Ezekiel is telling you. Not a literal offering of bulls and goats. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 12, maybe 10. Isaiah chapter 4, verse 1. Zephaniah 3. It is 12. Zephaniah 3 and 12. And then Yeshayahu 4 and 1. Isaiah 4 and 1. Interesting things that we can see in the word when we slow it down and pay attention. I will leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahuwah. The remnant of Yasharal shall do no iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. They shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. They will not commit sin. He's talking about the kingdom in Zephaniah chapter 3. And since I say that he's talking about the kingdom, let's read verse 16, and let's just justify that. And let's let the book tell it to you. And that day shall be said to Yerushalyim, fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thy hands be slack. Yahuwah thy Elohim in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. All you got to do is read Revelation 19 for that. He will rest in his love, and he will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at the same time I will undo all that afflict thee. And I will save her that halt and gather her that was driven out. And I will get them a praise and a fame in every land where they have been put to shame. You got to understand something. This man say he going to get you a praise and a name in every place where you have been shamed. Whether it be America, whether it be Canada, whether it be Mexico, whether it be Central America, whether it be South America, whether it be Europe, whether it be Africa, whether it be East Asia. It doesn't matter. Whether it be Australia. This man said, I'm going to get you a praise and a name and all the places where you've been put to shame. If you believe that and you trust in that, then you will walk accordingly, that you might be a partaker of that promise. Because that's a promise he just made you. That everywhere where you're shamed, I will make you a praise and a name. That should make you want to hold on to the word if you're tired of being shamed. But if you're not tired of being shamed, then of course you're not going to hold on. Verse 20 says, and at that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, I will make you a name and a praise among all the people that are rats, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith Yahuwah. Well, let's see how he'll turn back your captivity. Not in a natural sense. Let's see how he'll turn back your captivity. He said, he that commits sin is the servant of sin, and if the Son shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Because he said he will turn back your eyes. Your eyes will see your captivity get turned back. Well, we know if you in bondage to sin, you in bondage to death. Because he said he came to free them who for all their lifetime was in fear and the bondage of death. So let's look at, don't want that one. You don't want to work that one. We're going to get Isaiah 4 in 1 minute. Don't want to work that one. Which way I want to work this here? 1 Thessalonians 4 and 13. First Thessalonians 4 and 13. First Thessalonians 4 and 13. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so also them also which sleep, and Yahushua will Elohim bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of Yahuwah, that we which are alive shall not remain unto the coming of the Master, shall not prevent those of us which are alive, my apologies, and remain unto the coming of the Master, shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Master himself shall descend from Shamahim with a shout, and the voice of the Ark Malachim, and with the trump of Elohim, and the dead in Mashiach shall rise first. It means you going to see him. He said, every Revelation 1 and 7, you going to see him. He said, he'll turn back your captivity before your eyes. Well, he told you he swallowed up death in victory. You will see death turn back before your eyes. Sin will be destroyed before your eyes. After we read this Revelation 1 and 7, Hebrews 9 and 27. You trying to say something, Lamar? Oh, I thought you were trying to say something. I'm sorry. Revelation 1 and 7. Revelation 1 and 7. Revelation 1 and 7. Behold, he come with clouds, and every eye shall see him. They also which pierced him, and all the kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, so be it. I am the Aleph and the Tah, the beginning and the end, saith the Master, which is and which was, and which is to come, Al Shaddai. So this man's letting you know, you're going to see him. You're going to see him. He's going to turn back captivity. Hebrews 9 and 28. Paul told you. We'll read 1 Corinthians 15. It'll make no difference. 9 and 26 of Hebrews. 9 and 26. Now, for then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. See, he suffered from the beginning. It was already written. But now once in the end of the world, he have appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So what need would it be to do that? He done put that away. It is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. So Mashiach was once offered to bear the sins of many. Unto them that look for him, he shall appear the second time without sin unto salvation. I will turn your captivity from before your eyes. 1 Corinthians 15. Praise Yahuwah for salvation. That's why they say, draw ye waters out of the well of salvation. We ought to draw water straight out of Mashiach that our soul might be saved. What a wonderful work he worked. What a wonderful task he partook in. Because it ain't many that would have did it. That's for certain. Verse 52 of that 1 Corinthians 15. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the Torah. But thanks be to Elohim, which give us the victory through our master Yahushua HaMashiach. This man is unsat back, and I will return your captivity from before your eyes. Ain't gonna be no captivity in the kingdom of Elohim. Ain't gonna be no sin and no bondage in the kingdom of Elohim. That is spiritual retardation. Come on back to the book of Ezekiel as I get ready to close this out. Yahuwah willing, we pick up on this on tomorrow. I thank y'all for the word. So what it is, verses 18 and 19 in the 44th chapter of this same said book, my people, is that what we're looking for? 44, 18, and 19. We won't deal with that. I done dealt. That's a little different matter than what we talking about. Just a little bit different matter. I want y'all to come over here to where I can find one of the things what I'm talking about, where I talk about the prince making these sacrifices, because I did mention that. Ezekiel 45. And we're going to look at about verse 15. Ezekiel 45 and about verse 15. Ezekiel 45 and about verse 15. And one lamb out of the flock of 200, out of the fat pastures of Yashtaral, for a meat offering, and for a burnt offering, and for peace offerings, to make reconciliation for them, saith Yahuwah Elohim. Well, we know Paul already told you in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 that we have the gospel of reconciliation. Mashiach has already reconciled us back to Elohim. So again, this is not talking about why would we need to be reconciled back to Elohim if we've already been delivered and saved out of the land of our enemies. Ezekiel 37 is clear. We've been delivered. Listen what it says. And all the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince of Yasharal. It says all the people of the land will give this oblation for the prince of Yasharal. Let's look at these words, because we don't want to leave no stone unturned. Gonna try to make this as quick as possible though, because it's getting late, because I ain't start till 9. We ain't gonna go too much longer. We look at oblation. It is tormah, and it's an offering of grain, money, etc., contribution, an offering to Elohim, a heave offering, any offering, period. He say all the people of the land must give an offering to the prince, which is Nasi, one lifted up, chief, prince, captain, leader. So let's look at John 3 and 14, because it says they got to give it to the one that's lifted up. I don't know. I don't know if he was lifted up or not. I'm not sure. We know that he's great and he's cheap. We know that Peter told you that, hey, that Elohim made him a prince and a savior for the forgiveness of sins of Yasharal. It say all the people got to bring an offering to the one that's been lifted up. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that whosoever believe in him should not perish but have eternal life. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. But Elohim sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believe on him is not condemned, but he that believe not is condemned already, because he have not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of Elohim. So if a man has believed in the Son of Elohim, then he will offer himself as a living sacrifice. Let's look at Galatians chapter 2 by verse 16. And then 2 Corinthians chapter 5 by verse 14. And sit back and see that if you're going to be in this land, if you're going to be in the kingdom, then you're going to have to offer yourself to the prince. You're not going to get around that. You're going to have to sacrifice yourself to this man. You're going to have to offer yourself to this man. Galatians 2 and 16. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the Torah, but by the faith of Yahushua HaMashiach, even we have believed in Yahushua HaMashiach, that we might be justified by the faith of Mashiach, and not by the works of the Torah, for the works of the Torah shall no flesh be justified. Just as you already read and seen how the people came and offered all that stuff to the Levites, and the Levites sanctified themselves by their faith in Yahushua HaMashiach. They did the same thing. The same you seen in 2 Chronicles 31, you seeing the same thing. Paul telling you this here, you seeing the same thing in Ezekiel. It's the same thing. It's your faith which is going to set you apart. It's your faith that's going to set you apart. That's what's going to make you the set apart from the set apart. Because our people is a set apart people in and of itself. And then you have those that are set apart from the set apart. And we still going to hit Isaiah 4 and 1. But if while we seek to be justified by Mashiach, we are also found sinners, is therefore Mashiach the minister of sin, Elohim forbid. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I through the Torah am dead to the Torah, that I might live under Elohim. I am crucified with Mashiach. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Mashiach live in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of Elohim, who loved me and gave himself for me. So Paul is sitting back looking at, because this man offered himself for me, I will offer myself to him. That's the mind we got to have. Because he offered himself for you, offer yourself for him. 2 Corinthians 5 and 14. Then Isaiah 4 and 1. Then back to Ezekiel. 2 Corinthians 5 and 14. For the love of Mashiach constrain us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we are all dead. And he that died for all, and they that which should live, should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again. You're going to have to offer yourself to the prince, people. Oh, my beloved people of the sons of Yasharal, you're going to have to offer yourself to the prince of Yasharal. He said, thou shalt no longer be called Jacob, but Yasharal, for thou art a prince. For thou hast power with Elohim and with man, and thou hast prevailed. Thou hast prevailed. Don't you sit back and you understand and realize that? The prince is Yahushua. That's who you offering yourself to. You're not offering yourself to me. You're not offering yourself to each other. You're offering yourself to Yahushua HaMashiach. You're not making sacrifices for a man. That's why it's retarded when these dudes sit back and say that a woman need a man to get in the kingdom. She's not offering herself to you. You did not die for her. I did not die for you. Hold on since I said that. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 3. For a matter of fact, make it 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and 12. 1 and 11. For it hath been declared unto me of you, my brethren, by them which are of the house of Chloe, that there are contentions among you. Now this I say, that every one of you saith, I am of Shaul, and of Apollos, and of Kepha, and of Mashiach. Is Mashiach divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Or were you immersed in the name of Paul? Now you sit back and look at it. Paul said like that. Well, did I get killed for you? I'm not your prince. You ain't offering yourself to me. You need to offer yourself to Mashiach. That's the one who you belong to. You don't belong to me. Just as we read in that Second Chronicle 31, and in that First Chronicle 16, if I'm not mistaken, I ain't nothing but an overseer. That's it. Just in there tending the man flock till he get here. Till he get here. That's it. Some men he give 300 sheep, some men he give 40 sheep. You got to sit back and realize that's what the law say. That man say set captains over thousands, captains over hundreds, captains over 50s, captains over 10s. That's book. Every congregation ain't going to be the same. There's law right there, man. The man sat back and told you he set men over a certain amount of people. And each man that he set over those certain amount of people was to rule and govern them people according to the word Elohim. That's why he tell you to obey them to have rule over you. That's where all this stuff come from. It's all the same word. It's nothing new. These people not pulling stuff out their butthole. They're not coming up with stuff on their own. All this stuff is the book. Isaiah 4:1. So when we sit back and realize that we need to offer ourselves to the prince, he said everybody's got to bring an oblation to the prince. Everybody's got to bring an offering. The offering is you. Offer yourself as a living sacrifice unto Elohim. Bring an offering to the man. And don't be like Cain, bringing this man anything. Because you will be rejected. Because this man say, if you do well, shall you not be accepted? But if not, sin lie at the door. And that's where your desire going to be. So y'all sit back and look at it. You seeking to be justified by Mashiach. You don't need to be rebuilding the things you done destroyed. Now you done made yourself a transgressor. Now you telling Mashiach, you telling people Mashiach taught you to sin. Mashiach ain't taught you that. You did that. Isaiah 4:1. And in that day, matter of fact, make it 2, because I don't want to deal with that. I'm not even going to deal with verse 1. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to leave that alone. And that day shall the branch of Yahuwah be beautiful and esteemed, and the fruit of their rat shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Yasharal. Shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion and he that remain in Jerusalem shall be called Kadesh, every one that is written among the living in Jerusalem. When Yahuwah shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the ruach of judgment and the ruach of burning. You know, he told you that in Matthew chapter 3. He said there's one, he said, I indeed immerse with water, but it's one who immersed with the ruach hakodesh and with fire. So again, we see in the cleansing and the purging of that altar that is in Ezekiel 43. And 44, and 45, and 46. This ain't talking about us being purged with literal blood. It's talking about you being purged with the Ruach, covered and cleansed with the Ruach, with the Word. You know what I'm saying? He says, look at Ephesians 5 and 25 since I'm saying this. I thank y'all for the Word. It's all the same word. It's all the same thing. But you just got to know how to piece it together. Rightly dividing the word of truth, showing yourself to be a workman of Elohim. All I'm just sitting back and showing you that I'm approving myself to Elohim of being a workman. Because remember, when he's making that statement, we can show you that that's talking about those who have been called to do the work in the ministry. You got to show forth to be approved yourself to your master, to the man who sent you to do it, who gave you a job to do. How you going to be able to prove that ain't no different than any of y'all in y'all job. Most of y'all have evaluations to sit back and see if you do your job well. Well, Yahuwah want to make sure those who he sent to preach and study in the word that they can do their job well. Because then they can rightly divide it to manifest it to the people, that the people might understand the reading. And through understanding the reading, then they know the true Elohim, which is through Yahushua HaMashiach, which is eternal life, that they may dwell in him, and he might dwell in you, and that your soul might be saved. Ephesians 5 and 25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Mashiach also loved the body and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it by the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself an esteemed body, not having spot, wrinkle, or any such thing, that it should be Kadesh and without blemish. So that's what we sitting back when we looking at that cleansing and purging. Everybody that'll be written in Jerusalem shall be called Kadesh. You're not going to have no sin, no iniquity on them whatsoever. So of course this ain't talking about offering no burnt offerings and sin offerings for what? who going to be there sinning. Back to Ezekiel 45. We stopped in verse 16. We are now in the 17th verse of Ezekiel 45. We are in the 17th verse of Ezekiel 45. It shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Shabbats and the solemnities of the house of Yasharal. He shall prepare the sin offering and the meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings to make reconciliation for the house of Yasharal. Thus saith YAHUAH Elohim, in the first month, the first day of the month, thou shalt take a young bullock without blemish and cleanse the sanctuary. And the priest shall take the blood of the sin offering and put it upon the posts of the house, and upon the four corners of the settle of the altar, and upon the posts of the gate of the inner court. So again, you see the four posts of the altar. And we read about the four posts of the altar in the 40th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, the 43rd chapter. And all you need to do if you want to look at the four posts is, that's Mashiach being nailed to the stake. You just sitting back seeing the patterns of the things that Shamahim, this man is seeing this man being slain from the foundation of the world. This is what he is seeing. This is what he's witnessing. I'm not going to go pull it, but y'all can go pull it. You go read Leviticus chapter 16 and see who's the only person that is able to make the offering of sins to make reconciliation of the people. That's only Aaron, the sons of Aaron, the high priest. They the only ones who can do that. Aaron was not a prince. David was not a priest. David could not make that reconciliation. If David makes that reconciliation, he has broken the Torah. All you got to do back is look at King Uzziah when he came into the temple and went to offer incense upon the altar. And he was made leprous when he did it. Because the Levites told him, don't do this. You don't have no business doing this. That's not your authority. He did it anyway. David was a man after Yahuwah's own heart. David ain't finna go in there and make no offerings for no reconciliation for no sins in no house of Yahuwah. You don't read David doing that nowhere. You also don't read anywhere. Huh? What you say now? So we have to notice. Look at what he said now. And thou shalt say on the seventh day of the month, for everyone that err, and for him that is simple, so shall you reconcile the house. And in the first month, the 14th day of the month, you shall have the Passover feast of 7 days, unleavened bread shall be eaten. And upon that day shall the prince prepare for himself and for all the people of the land a bullock for a sin offering. And 7 days of the feast shall he prepare a burnt offering to Yahuwah, 7 bullocks, 7 rams without blemish daily, 7 days of goats daily for a sin offering. He shall prepare a meat offering, an ephah for a bullock, an ephah for a ram, and a hen for an oil and an ephah. And in the 7th month, in the 15th day of the month, shall he do like in the feast of 7 days, according to the sin offering, according to the burnt offering, and according to the meat offering, and according to the oil. And ain't that interesting that when we read in here that he's mentioning tabernacles and Passover? Because he said he'll appear the second time to put away sin, coming with salvation. This man is actually, Ezekiel actually seen the slaughter of the lamb and the redemption of the people in this vision. He's seeing this. He's seeing the patterns of the things that shine. He is getting a vision of the salvation of Yahuwah. But we look at the prince. We already read in Zechariah 6 and 12 that Yahushua, the son of Jehozadak, would be a king and priest on his throne, or a ruler and a priest. Genesis 49 tells you Yehudah is the chief ruler, the lawgiver, the king, and under him shall the gathering of the people be. And he's showing you the gathering of the people right here in verse 25. But let's read Ezekiel 46 and 16 before we depart. Thus saith YAHUAH Elohim, if the prince give a gift unto any of his sons, the inheritance thereof shall be his sons. It shall be their possession by inheritance. But if he give a gift of inheritance to one of his servants, then it shall be his to the year of freedom. After it shall return to the prince, but his inheritance shall be for his sons. Well, we know according to the law that all firstborn sons receive double. Now, David is not a prince. He is not the chief ruler. The reason why we say in this instance, because he was a chief ruler, he's not the prince that we're reading about here, because David could not make offerings for sacrifices. But we know Revelation 21:7 say that he that overcometh, he will inherit all things. And he shall be my son, and I will be his Elohim. We also know that he that overcome shall sit at my right hand, even as I sit at my father's right hand. Again, showing us what happened with Joseph in Genesis. Though Pharaoh was not his father, it's a similitude of the son and the father and the son. That because that he sat back, that Joseph inherited all things when he became the firstborn from the dead, or the firstborn son from the dead, and he inherited all things. And that if we become to sit back to join ourselves with the firstborn from the dead, then we will become his sons and we will inherit all things. Because Isaiah 53 tell you, he say he shall see his seed and they shall prosper in his sight. People say Mashiach ain't got no sons. He say he gave you power to become the sons of Elohim, all those that are born, that believe on his name. And but not only sons, but daughters as well, as we read in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and about verse 17. So this gives us an understanding to know that what we're looking at, and most High willing, we'll look into more of this here on the morrow, that all of these things in Ezekiel are pointing to the pattern of the things of Shamahim and the working of salvation that Abba Yahuwah worked through our Master, Savior, and Malik Yahushua HaMashiach. And with that being said, hallelujah for Yahushua in the Word. Did y'all understand all of this evening? We will start right there.